Welcome to the Verbalizers podcast. There are a lot of hardworking musicians and great music in underground metal. We want to support this, so we started this podcast. We also want to share the great underground music with you listening. If you enjoy this podcast, your support is very important, because the more people who find us, the more we can support the bands that we verbalize. In this type of episode, we invite a band and talk about funny and cool things that have taken place during tours and things like that. I'm Johan Verbalizer, and this episode we will be talking about the band Bare Knuckle Brawl. So, I guess we could start by, if you want to introduce yourself and your band, and also if there's anything else you would like to say before we start.
Yeah, I'm George, the vocalist.
I'm Chris, I'm the rhythm guitarist for Bare Knuckle Brawl.
And I'm Isaac. I play bass guitar for Bare Knuckle Brawl.
All right. You're a thrash metal band from Minnesota, right? I guess we could start with some stories, I guess.
I guess basically, I think Isaac might be the only Minnesotan in the band, or like native Minnesotan.
Yeah.
Chris and I are both from Texas. Our guitarist Onu is from Turkey. Tom is from Vermont, I think.
I don't remember, to be honest.
I don't remember. Tom, our drummer. I don't know. But yeah, like we all, like 4/5 of us are from different parts, and then we all found ourselves in Minnesota, and now we're a band and doing stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. This is my first like real band, so I haven't like toured or anything like that, but I do got some lessons that I've learned.
That sounds interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
So you moved to Minnesota, and then you founded the band after that.
Yeah. I moved to Minnesota, and I had wanted to be in a band like my whole life. And so one day, after my grandfather passed, I was like, it's either now or never. I'm only getting older. So I threw out some feelers on Facebook, like on the New Wave of Heavy Metal Thrash page, and other local musicians pages and stuff like that on Facebook. And I found a drummer who was willing to jam, and I sent him my stuff on a Friday. Yeah, I sent him my stuff on a Friday. We got together the next day, and things clicked. So that was pretty cool. And then
right.
Yeah, and after that, George joined the band. He had just moved he was in the process of moving, right?
Yeah,
from El Paso, Texas. And I was kind of like, I was super interested in him jamming with us, man, because he had shared some of his previous material or with the band that he was currently playing with. And I really liked his pipes that he's got, so I was like, man, we got to get this guy to jam with us. And I was a bit persistent, but it worked out.
It was definitely a good set of circumstances. And Chris would message me a lot when I was in the process of moving up here. But I mean, like, I was in the process of packing up my entire life and moving to the other side of the country, so I couldn't be as responsive as I try to be.
All right.
But yeah, no, it was cool. I think I moved up here and we jammed maybe like a few weeks after I moved up here, like 3 weeks. My old band actually came up from Texas before that, and oh no, yeah, my old band came up from Texas and played a show at a local venue here, and the drummer at the time came and checked it out, and I think that kind of helped, cement my position from because he got to see me with my other band.
Yeah.
Chris had COVID, so he couldn't go.
Oh.
Yeah. That was pretty. I was pretty bummed about that because I had, been wanting to go check out his show and stuff, and
Yeah.
didn't happen. But our drummer was able to make it at the time, so that was good. And
because you were familiar with their band before they played in Minnesota.
Yeah. To be honest, I hadn't actually heard about them until I reached out to him, and then he sent me his stuff. I was like, hey, this is pretty fucking good.
Right.
Yeah. And so Isaac, I kept bothering him too. He was like, so I reached out to him and I was like, hey man, we're looking for a bassist. I think he had left a comment or something like that on our video on Facebook. And
Yep, that's right.
Yep. And then I reached out and I was like, you want to come jam? And he's like, well, I'd love to, but I'm in another band right now, which is Slag. He's got his brothers in that band too.
Right.
And so he was, just letting me know he already had a band that he was in. And time went on and we hadn't found a bass player. Excuse me. There was 2 bassists who had auditioned before Isaac, and things just didn't work out. And so one day, again, I had posted a video, and then Isaac commented. He was like, hey, this sounds pretty good. Something like that. And
I said, oh man, if I had the time, I would totally try out for your band.
Yeah.
And well,
yeah. So I was like,
I think you had seen a video of Slag, my other band, Slag. Chris saw a video of us playing Sepultura song, Refuse Resist.
Yes.
I think that's how he first found out about me. And then I saw a video of him playing his riff, and I was like, pretty goddamn sick riff. So when he reached out to me asking if I could try out for his band, I didn't really have any intention of joining another band. I was already tight for time. I had a full-time job, another band, all that stuff. But I decided to try it out and see how it went. So I went and met up with him. We jammed, and I think I played 3 songs with him before he offered me the spot.
Yeah. That video that I saw, I knew he could play because he had a like music notes in front of him, and he was also wearing. Yeah, he was wearing was it a Havoc? No, it wasn't a Havoc shirt. It was damn, I forgot what band shirt he was wearing. But I was like, oh, I think it was Warbringer. It was a Warbringer t-shirt. And I was like, yeah, I was like, I love Warbringer. And then I saw him, he was like I could tell he was shredding on that bass. I was like, man, I hope we can get him to audition, and he did. So happy about that.
Yeah, Warbringer shirt and shredding on bass. That sounds great to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A big unspoken thing when it comes to auditioning for a band is what t-shirt you're wearing. That's like 30% of the audition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of a funny thing. I mean, the choice of a shirt can say a lot about the person, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I guess what shirt is everybody wearing?
Right now I'm wearing a Beatrix shirt.
Okay.
It's a band we have featured before.
Right.
And also the hoodie, Motorhead.
Nice.
I got a Oro Drim shirt. They're a
Right.
black metal band out of Austin, Texas. Very good stuff.
I'm not sure if I'm familiar with them.
I know they don't play too often. But yeah, my old band, we played with them once, and they were really cool. They had like
Right.
the whole like candles, and they were playing like monk robes and stuff like that, and yeah, they were cool.
Yeah.
And they were like nice group of people to hang out with afterwards, and super chill. Good band, I recommend.
Right. Yeah, but it's kind of funny with a lot of those kind of like black metal bands and stuff with like candles and stuff on stage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all like they're real spooky, and then like off stage they're like teddy bears.
Yeah, I mean that's a great thing, I believe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe that speaking of like kind of origins and stuff like that, I got introduced to Bare Knuckle Brawl from, for example, the new wave of thrash metal group that you spoke about earlier. Like that was basically how I found Bare Knuckle Brawl, and I think one of the things that really like kind of caught my attention was really like the name, Bare Knuckle Brawl. Like it just sounds really, really cool to me.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a sick name.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned to you before, I came up with that name because when I was a kid, my dad would order pay-per-views called Bare Knuckle Brawls. Yeah, so I was like, man, that'd be a cool band name. So at the time, it was our original drummer. He and I were trying to come up with a name. And so I threw that one out, and he was like, I think I kind of love that, dude. So that's...
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good name. It works well on flyers too with the logo.
Yeah. Because I also believe that it was like the artwork with like the skull, like the logo in the mouth. Like I believe that was like the first thing I saw about Bare Knuckle Brawl. And that immediately caught my attention. I was like, okay, this looked like serious stuff. And then I listened to it, and it was confirmed to me that it indeed was.
Well, I'm glad it met the expectations.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think George made that track art himself with the skull, with the logo in the mouth.
I didn't make the logo.
Well, yeah, you didn't make the logo, but you made the rest of it.
Yeah, I did some of it. Yeah, to an extent.
All right, so do you guys have any like other story or something, or do you want to like make some normal like interview questions or something like that?
I mean, what kind of stories are you looking for?
I mean, it's kind of up to you, really. Like, do you have any like anecdotes about like shows that you've been playing or something like that?
I think there's this guy that goes to local shows called Mosher Dan.
Yes, Mosher Dan.
His name is Dan, and he moshes, and it's cool that like, because there's always tons of shows going on in the area that we live in, so people always have different options and different things that they can go check out pretty much any day of the week, it feels like. And Mosher Dan is the kind of guy that's always going to shows all the time. And I feel very, very grateful and lucky that it seems he's been like at every one of our shows.
Yeah, I think he has been.
Yeah, every single one.
Yeah. So I think that's pretty cool. Especially when, like I said, there's always something else to do.
Yeah, Mosher Dan's a cool dude. First time I met him, he actually pissed me off. It was at the Annihilation Process show, and he was in the pit, and I hadn't been in the pit in a long time, so I got in there, and then he was hitting me pretty hard on my my shoulder here. I was all like, man, this guy, I'm gonna have to give him a good one. So I did too. He came up to me and I just bumped him pretty good. And but he was cool after that. He came up to me and he like patted me on the back. I was like, all right, this guy's cool.
Yeah, I mean, with a name like that, you can imagine that the guy knows how to mosh.
Yeah, and he's
Yeah.
a good guy too. But man, he gets in there. He gets in there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's kind of like a funny thing that I would like to kind of bring up. Speaking of like being to all kinds of shows and stuff like that, I think it's pretty great when we like have our Instagram lives. Like almost everyone that I've been in, like you see Bare Knuckle Brawl joining, and that's something we really appreciate.
Well, thank you. Yeah, you guys do, good for the metal community. You push underground bands, and it's good to get it back too, because it can't just be one way. Other people you gotta watch the live streams and make sure that it gets views and stuff. So
yeah, and again, we really appreciate that. I mean, I think it's kind of funny because I'm pretty sure that like Bare Knuckle Brawl has joined more Mel Verbalizers stream than I have.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
So that kind of says it all basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely appreciate that very much.
Of course, man.
But yeah, we were speaking about like the kind of scene in Minnesota, and you mentioned that there's all kinds of shows everywhere. Like, I guess we could, if you want to speak about the scene in Minnesota a little bit. Like, is it metal or like thrash metal in particular, or is it like shows in general? Is it any specific type, or is it just in general?
I think from the shows that I've been to, I think there's a lot of like hardcore bands around here. I feel like the scene might be a little bit dominated by like hardcore and like death metal-ish bands, but everybody, there are a lot of bands here, and a lot of different bands get together on the same bill, so there's a lot of shows that you might see one band and they sound totally different, to the next band.
Right.
It's really cool. Where I'm from, there's no metal scene. It's just, if you don't play Spanish music or country music, you're not going to make it, so it's there. I was, always really happy to see when a metal band that I listened to would come down, which was rare. But up here, like, I have to pick, because I can't go to them all. There's so many groups here. Testament and Creator are playing next week, and then Exodus is going to be here with Havoc, and I forgot who else. But there's a lot of shows that come through here, and I feel really lucky to be able to catch the ones that I really want to catch.
Yeah, having to decide between which kick-ass shows to go to is it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, sounds like a pretty good problem to have. To
yeah, no, it definitely is. Going back to like your question, like there is thrash music here, but yeah, it's right now it does seem like the music scene's dominated by, like a lot of hardcore, like a lot of that, a lot of hardcore, a lot of death metal influenced hardcore stuff like that, which is it's really cool. It's not particularly something that I'm like super crazy about. I don't dislike it, but I just naturally listen to other stuff. But it's top tier, it's top tier hardcore. It sounds great. The live shows that they have are great. Crowd responses are amazing in those shows, and I'm super glad that like that's going on. Just like with everything, there'll be a time where another kind of style starts to dominate. Like ebbs and flows. So I'm sure there'll be another, like, I'm sure there's a time frame where thrash music will be, leading the pack, and hopefully we're still around by then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isaac, you've been here a while. Like, has the scene fluctuated, or has it always been kind of like that genre that kind of dominates?
Oh, I mean, it's definitely fluctuated for sure. I mean, it was really strong in the 80s and the 90s. For a while in like the 2010s, it seemed like it kind of slowed down a bit. And then, of course, with the pandemic, it took out so many venues. A lot of bands just called it quits because they couldn't play anywhere for years. But post pandemic, we've seen like a pretty remarkable resurgence. Like, there's a lot of new bands coming out, a lot of old bands getting back together. We got bands around here that have been around for 20 plus years. So, I mean, I think the scene right now is in a really strong place. Probably the strongest it's ever been.
Nice.
But yeah, there's a ton of diversity, and like not even just in the Twin Cities area, the Minneapolis, St. Paul. Like, you'll find bands from all over the surrounding states, and they all come to the Twin Cities because it's basically the only major city in this area. So it's like a mecca for the music scene, not just the metal scene, but the entire music scene in general.
All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of good punk stuff going on, indie music, yeah, all over the place. It's cool.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, in it, kind of like you're saying, it's also drawing very big names in the genre. Like as you were saying, like Creator, Testament, Exodus. So it's like not only like a kind of underground scene, but it's also kind of drawing those bigger names as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think like a local brewery is even releasing like a Testament beer.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I forget the name of the brewery. I think it was Modest. I'm not sure. But yeah, next week they're releasing like a special edition Testament IPA or something.
I didn't actually know that, but that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
They got a meet and greet that you can check out, and it's only $10 a ticket. And,
Right.
Oh no, I'm sorry, that's a different show. I think it's like $20 a ticket, but that's not too out of, that's pretty affordable. $20, you get to go meet and greet with Testament and try their new IPA. That's pretty sick,
Yeah, I mean, if you're close by, that's worth it, I would say.
I also saw that they're offering like signed merch and stuff too.
Right.
So yeah, that's super sick.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, we could talk a little bit about, for example, about the music of Bare Knuckle Brawl. If you want to talk a little bit about inspirations and what's kind of like the main inspiration for Bare Knuckle Brawl music.
Yeah. Well, from a riff perspective, I just, I listen to different genres, but thrash metal is like the one that you'll find me listening to, like 99% of the time. I love thrash metal. I always have since I was a little kid. So I just get my inspiration from everything I hear. And of course, when I was younger, there were no bigger thrash bands that were new. It was all the older bands that had already, come and gone. They've done the thing. And, I just, as, time went on, I think I was a senior in high school when I first heard Warbringer. Or maybe I was graduated. I don't know. It was somewhere around that time.
Yeah.
And, Warbringer, I was like, man, these guys kick ass, so like I love discovering, newer thrash metal bands. And in my opinion, it might be a unpopular opinion, but I think thrash metal is way better now than what it was before. I mean, you can't take away what they did.
No, of course not.
Yeah, no, they created the genre, the older bands, but Like it just sounds so much more refined and aggressive, you know, and angry, and that's what I love, you know. I feel like it comes from in my chest when I hear it. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, with Divide and Conquer, our first single, that riff was it's kind of like a mashup of my really old riff and a new riff. I had these two riffs that I never completed for years. And no, I'm sorry, there was one riff that I never completed for years. And then, you know, later on when actually it happened as uh our original drummer and I got together, I was like, well, what if I mashed these two up, you know? And I did, and then it sounded cool. And that was a newer
Right.
riff, old riff. And Sicario, that's the oldest riff that I have, you know, that I remember. You know, I wrote that one. I was like 16 or 17 or maybe even 15. And excuse me. Yeah, it's just I just loved that riff because it was very like Slayer oriented, you know.
Yeah.
And when I came up with that one, Slayer was like my favorite band at the time. So it's very heavily influenced by that. And what else? Fisticuffs. That's just a whole new riff like that I came up with when we first started jamming with the full band. And the old guard, that one's kind of an older riff too. And I put that one together when I first heard Grave Dive from Municipal Waste. I was like, man, I really love that riff, you know. So I wanted to come up with something that gave me in my heart the same feel but sound different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much how those riffs came about.
I see. Yeah, because can I go back a little bit to what you were saying about like old thrash versus new thrash, or how would I say it? I believe that I kind of understand what you mean, because like nowadays I tend to also listen to like mostly newer thrash compared to like older thrash, and I can definitely see what you mean.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. Like there's a dark period in thrash, which is like the 90s and early 2000s, where I feel like, I mean, thrash was still awesome, but
Yeah,
like all the bands that came out had like this distinct sound that sounded like it was still aggressive thrash, but it was kind of very commercial at the same time, you know, which isn't bad, but when these newer bands started coming out, it took it back to like the rawness of it, and I
yeah,
really
yeah. It definitely felt like a revival movement almost.
yeah.
I think like the one like thrash band that I can come up with like that kind of remained pretty consistent even like under the 90s and that time is like Sodom.
Yeah, Sodom's super awesome, man. Um, I wasn't one of their like original guitarists also from like he went to Creator or something like that, or vice versa. I know that they share a guitarist somewhere down their timelines.
Yeah, I believe that like Blackfire, Frank Blackfire went from Sodom to Creator.
Yeah,
I believe that's maybe.
yeah. I love Sodom.
Yeah, same here. But yeah, another thing that I would like to ask you guys is like when you're writing songs and when you're writing music for Bare Knuckle Brawl, what usually comes first for you? Is it like the instrumental parts, like the music, or is it like the lyrics?
Definitely the guitar comes first.
Yeah.
The
All
riff
right.
every time. Yeah. Chris is just a riff machine. He pumps them out, and they're always awesome, 100% of the time.
I have to try to scale back because I always have ideas and I'm always like trying to put them together. So and then I forget that, oh, we're still working on this other stuff that we have. So you know, I
Right.
have to try to like bring it back a little bit.
Yeah, the lyrics tend to be done last. Usually it takes me like it takes me a long time to come up with lyrics because I'll mull over in my head like vocal patterns for the longest time. So I focus mostly on vocal patterns before even writing lyrics. And then once the vocal patterns are done, like I sit down with like a sheet of paper and I'm just like, okay, this section is going to be 4 syllables times 4 times, and 3 syllables times twice. So it basically looks like a math equation, and then I sit there and put some headphones on and pretty much just listen to like the first 30 seconds and then come up with some lyrics and then toss those away and then come up with some new ones. And then you go to the next 30 seconds of the song and then so on until it's done. So yeah, that takes me a while to get to. Yeah. So the lyrics come last. I have found that writing lyrics for Bare Knuckle Brawl is a little bit easier. With the Chris wrote the lyrics to Divide and Conquer. Like he wrote that before he wrote those lyrics before I joined. So that one was just kind of like already pre-planned. But the rest of the songs, it wasn't intentional, but I realized I was lyrically writing them like from a first person perspective. Like the song is being sung by the character that the song is about, and that like channeling that is like a lot easier than trying to like write about like some kind of like abstract thought or things like that. This new song that we're working on, it's gonna be about existence through the eyes of the Grim Reaper, death. So
all right.
The lyrics for that are going to be centered around like through the eyes of death. Yeah.
I see.
Which yeah, I need you guys to send me that recording again so I can work on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty interesting. That it's like a very clear answer to that question, because I think that it tends to be pretty common that the bands can like answer pretty much both on that question. Like it changes between song and song. So I was kind of almost surprised that it was like a very clear answer. Like yes, music first.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I guess we could. We were talking about like the scene a little bit before, but I would also like to kind of talk a little bit about how long have you like traveled for a show? Have you played a lot outside of Minnesota?
Well, we've actually only played 4 shows, and they've all been in the Twin Cities. So, for me, I live the furthest away, so it's only been about 30 to 40 minutes, for me whenever I drive. These guys already live there, so it's like either 10 or 20 minutes for them.
All right.
We haven't gone, anywhere else, not yet, but I do want to, and I eventually, we keep playing. Hopefully we'll get like an offer or we'll DIY tour ourselves, I've never done it, so we're gonna have to figure that out. you
Right.
know,
Yeah.
will happen.
Yeah. Yeah. The shows we've had here, I think my average, like I take the train and it takes me like 10 minutes from my house, but yeah, we should play out some more.
Yeah, there's a band that I talked to on Instagram, and they're talking about maybe doing a show with us either in Chicago or over here. I would like to go to Chicago, so maybe we go there, but we'll see. That's just an idea that's been thrown.
Yeah, I have a tour story about Chicago, not with Bare Knuckle Brawl, but with another band.
Right.
Doing time in Chicago. the day that we were gonna play there, it was raining heavily. So yeah, I was on tour with my band at the time, Civil Serpents. We had a show in Chicago, and it was raining hard that day, like just nonstop, almost kind of flooding. And like I guess like long story short, literally all the bands that we were supposed to play with that day dropped. And yeah, that was a rough break. But like we were already at the venue. The owner was there with the bartender, and you know, she gave it was a fed us, and then they pretty much just like pull out like a bottle of rum, and they're like, all right, well, we're gonna have a good time tonight. And it was raining hard, like really bad, and it was probably dangerous to be out for anybody, but for whatever reason, like 6 people still showed up, and we were like, well, let's just go ahead and play to these 6 people with no other bands. And it was like a decent sized venue too, so it was a lot of empty space, and we played it. It was super fun. Everybody that was there was like super cool, and it ended up being for me like one of the more memorable shows, just because of all the circumstances around it. And pretty much everybody that was there bought merch, so that's a win.
Right.
Yeah, so that's my Chicago tour story.
Right. Yeah, 100% of the crowd buying merch.
Yeah. Let's see those numbers at most shows.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think that's a very, very cool thing. Like you're saying, even if it's like 6 people or something showing up, like you just go up on stage and like let the show must go on. Like you just go for it anyway, and you do like your best. I really, really like that kind of passion and that kind of like drive.
Yeah, I mean, for like, I personally, I love like weird shows. I love shows where the venue is super small. I love, like, I just like that kind of stuff. Like that seems like more memorable.
Yeah.
One time we played in New Orleans, and the smallest bar, like I'm not joking. There was enough room for the bar, us to be set up, and maybe like 8 people. That's how much room there was. It was made like this place was maybe like 20 feet wide, and like it was like 20 by 20. It was like the size of a room, like an apartment room. And yeah, it was had about 10 people there, but it felt great because it was a jam-packed spot. Did not sell merchandise to everybody there, but we played with some bands that weren't necessarily like genre like fitting.
All right.
But it was super cool. New Orleans is a cool place. I like their very their lack of public drinking laws.
I've always wanted to go there because of that. I always see videos of people just drunk and holding their beverages and stuff.
Oh, I love day drinking, and like add drinking in public to it, and I'm all for it. I used to go down to South by Southwest every year specifically for getting drunk during the day, because it's better.
What is that you're drinking, by the way?
It's a Polar Premium Seltzer, cranberry lime.
Nice.
Yeah. Talking about day drinking while I have a little seltzer.
Yeah. Isaac, you've been around. How many, have you played to small crowds too? And for Slag and stuff like that? And
Oh, absolutely. Actually, it was earlier this year. It was right before spring came. We played a show at Eagles 34 in Minneapolis, and we had about 3 people show up to that one. Yeah, it was more or less just a paid practice. But you know, it's still a good time. Even shows like that are still a lot of fun because I mean you're playing, and you know at least the other bands are there. They can watch you before they go on. But yeah, the first show that I ever played, there was even way more people than that. It was actually a show that we put on in my basement when I lived in a small town west of Minneapolis, about 2 hours west. Just a basement show. We had like 30 people show up for that one.
nice.
Right.
And then somebody uninvited came and spat beer on our guitarist, and we had to kick them out. Yeah, good times.
Sounds like
But yeah, it was like in your basement, you said.
Yep, basement.
Right.
It was an old unfinished basement from a house that's over 100 years old. There was a great big support column right in the middle.
Right.
We had the band set up on one side of the room, and everybody just stood on the other side of the room. And there's people sitting on the stairs, and it was pretty packed down there.
Right.
nice. Yeah, I don't have any tour stories, but I do have like a few stories of things that I've learned. Like there was one show that we played, and so like I mentioned, this is my first band really playing shows with ever, and so there's a lot of things I still don't know. And so this one band put this show together for us, and this was our third show. And before that time, our drummer, he'd been the one who had set the shows up. And, at the end of the show, he would come and, let me know how much the band made for the show or whatever. And, I didn't really know anything else. So I went, on our third show, after the show, like everybody had already played, everybody was just hanging and having a good time. And I was like, well, I wonder how much we're getting paid this time. So I went and I looked for the owner of the bar, and he was like, oh yeah, no, just come back here, and he let me know how much we made, and it was like over $1,000, and I was all like, no way, we made that much for this show, and I thought it was just for us, you know what I mean? Because I had never experienced anything other than and I was talking to him personally. He didn't make any statement that would lead me to believe that this was for all the bands. I thought it was just our portion. And so we're packing up and leaving, and then one of the guys from another band came up to me, and he's all like, "Hey, so are we gonna get paid?" I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, the owner told me to come find you, but that you got the money." And I was like, "Oh shit." And I was like, I hope you don't think I'm trying to jack this money. So I'm a very anxious person, I guess. So I started just overthinking the situation in my head. I'm like, is he gonna think I'm stealing it? So I was like, look, man, this is what I got. Let me count it in front of you so you see I didn't take anything, And then, going above the extra mile just to show him that, like, hey, man, I wasn't trying to, take your all's cut. So, anyways, we go back to the other room, and the band who put the show together is there, and he let me know. So I told him, I was like, my bad, dude. Like, it's usually our drummer who's done this, so I didn't know that. I had to. Yeah, I just went to the owner and asked him what we were getting paid, and this is what he gave me. He's like, no, yeah, usually he let me know. You go up to the band who put the show together, and I was like, oh, okay. So lesson well learned,
Yeah. Because I mean, that's something that I've been thinking about a lot as well. Like in general, like having a band and like being active in a band is like a lot of work. You know, like a lot of people might have a kind of glorified view of it, that it's basically like, you know, press record, play your instrument, and like, you know, then an album happens, and like, you know, go into a place, play your instruments in front of people, and like, you know, getting paid, like stuff like that. But you know, there's a lot of work like outside of all that as well, that it seems like a lot of people kind of miss, as far as I'm can see.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that, you know, bands do that you don't know about, you know, and in terms of what comes with playing the music, you know what I mean, at a venue and stuff. And there's things that I didn't know that I'm still learning, that I've learned, and I had no idea, you know, like before any of this, I would never have guessed that, you know, some of the rules, the unspoken rules are what they are, but they are that way. So, you know, I got to learn them and move forward, you know?
Yeah.
And then you learn that some rules that apply in some places don't transfer over to other scenes. Like I've noticed up here, a lot of bands share equipment when they're playing shows in between bands, and where I'm from, that's typically not what you see. Like you don't see bands sharing equipment too much for whatever reason. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, I guess, you know, doing music is just there's a lot of constant learning going on.
Yeah, I don't think there's a show that we've played that I haven't shared my cab, at least, you know?
Right.
Every show we've played, somebody's used my cab.
Yeah, super cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's also so like kind of think about the ideas like you know, copyright stuff, and like, you know, the kind of like legal aspects like that, which I guess kind of we are dealing a little bit, you know, we have to kind of keep in mind as well. You know, it's that stuff that seems very, very complicated to me as well.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
there's a lot to kind of keep in mind and to do.
Yeah, there really is, man.
But yeah, it was another thing that I was thinking about Bare Knuckle Brawl, and that is kind of like the artwork, and like specifically like the colors of the artwork, because I've taken notice that on each release it's like in black and white. So you guys want to like kind of talk about that a little bit, like where that comes from, and you know, if you are planning on continuing that, etc.
I
Well,
think there's got to be one for George, huh?
yeah.
Nah, I mean, actually, like our upcoming stuff that we're gonna have, that's gonna have color, if I recall correctly, right, Chris?
It is. There's different colors on that one. In the past, you know, with the black and white, that's like, so for me, my favorite color is black, and it always has been. And you know, I just think black and white go well together, you know, even on the shirts and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, same here.
yeah. And you know, growing up, I thought like the coolest thing to wear was like a a biker's leather jacket, you know, like the typical thrash metal leather jacket with either blue jeans or black jeans. Some at the time for me it was biker boots. I would have biker boots on, and I would just have a plain white tee under, you know, and I felt like I looked like a badass or whatever. But yeah, now I've swapped the boots for high tops. So I got a big collection of high tops. But yeah, I just like, you know, the colors black and white, and they've gone well together. And I think the old guard it had brown and black, or like tan. It was like a tan color.
It was like
Yeah.
like a mustardy tan something.
Yeah.
Yeah. I personally like covers that are just two colored. That sometimes maybe even might even look like a photocopy, like something from a copy machine. I don't know. I think like you can do more with having less options. So when it's just like two colors and stuff like that, usually black and white, like it leaves a lot of space to do like nuance and cool stuff. And yeah, like not everything needs to be completely like filled up all the time.
Yeah, definitely. I tend to really appreciate that as well. Like you're saying, like not necessarily only about the colors, but like in general, that kind of like a simplistic look. Like kind of like you're getting into, I believe, the kind of idea of like basically less is more sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, like, and a lot of it depends on like the aesthetic that a band has in general. I mean, a band like Municipal Waste with their like they have their aesthetic. So if they released something that was just a simple black and white cover, that would be a little odd.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like kind of like the context.
Yeah.
Yeah, another thing that we've had pretty often in our like artwork are skulls.
Yeah.
I personally think that's really cool because I mean, early on, I feel that gives us a little bit of an identity, with what we've released, and I just love skulls. Even on my phone, I just ordered a new one. I mean, I have skulls everywhere. I have skull necklaces, skull T-shirts, skull I think I have one skull ring, and I just love skulls. So every time like I see something and there's a skull involved, I'm like, yeah, we gotta do it.
Yeah, it's something about the skull that just looks cool and looks metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what how our art's just been kind of similar in a way, but a little different at the same time.
Yeah, because I mean, I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate as well. The kind of like simplistic style, but it's also very straightforward in a way as well. Like as we were talking about, like fisticuffs, for example, like with the skull, and like the old guard, for example, like they're very like gruesome, like gory, like picture. Like it's very straightforward at the same time.
Yeah. I think when you look at our artwork, it gives you a pretty good idea of what you're gonna encounter. I mean, yeah, I don't think there will be very many acoustic guitars or like 80s synth like parts.
Which I love though. I'm a sucker for 80s synth, dude.
Oh yeah, same here, man.
Yeah, fun fact. I tried to look for other artists here who were down to like maybe start like a synth wave thrash metal band. Because there's this band that I listen to called Midnight Nightmare, and they're super cool. They're like a newer synth band, but they got like heavy metal guitar in the back with even like solos and stuff. No lyrics whatsoever, just music. But I mean, it's great. I love it, and I was all like, man, maybe we could do something like that here, but nobody was interested. So
all right,
move on.
Yeah, I can't really place it, but I believe that name does ring a bell for me.
Yeah, they're really cool. Yeah, Midnight Nightmare.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check them out after this episode.
For sure. Yeah, I'll send you a YouTube link or something like that.
Yeah, sure, that would be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really like that kind of like idea of kind of like mixing different styles. Because that usually results in a pretty, like, interesting and cool sound. Everything from, like you're saying, like the kind of synth stuff, like combined with like kind of heavy guitars, and kind of like making a sound out of that, or stuff like, you know, death thrash or black thrash and stuff like that usually results in very cool sound, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, I love mixed genres, you know, especially, you know, black and thrash. I love black and thrash. So good.
Yeah.
You know, death thrash is awesome. I just anything thrash, give it to me.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Same here. But yeah, speaking of black thrash, I mean, Beatrix, great example.
I'll have to check that band out. I haven't checked them out actually.
Yeah, definitely. Great people and great music.
Nice, nice. Well, I don't have any, like I said, I don't have any tour stories, man. That's these two guys.
Right. So you like, do you have any like anecdotes or stories in regards to like recording these songs or like being in the studio that you would like to talk about?
Well, I'll shine a little bit of light on like our first recording experience. You know, we don't really talk about it much to other people, but yeah, so it was my first time in the studio. You know, I had never been in the studio before, so that was one thing that I got to check off the list. And you know, everything was cool. And but you know, I think, you know, you might have noticed we mentioned our original drummer. So you know, he and I, we got into a disagreement, and you know, he just decided you know, we'd part ways, or we actually, not just him, we all just collectively decided we would part ways. And you know, we had already a drum track recorded for Divide and Conquer, but you know, since he left, you know, we decided to you know, not use it, and we went with a studio drummer who also happened to be the producer of the song. And
Right.
yeah, he did a really good job, you know. And you know, it is different than what it was originally, but he did the song justice, and we were happy with it. So, and you know, actually, we've only gone to him for our recordings so far, um, and we love his work. I'm gonna give him a shout out. Actually, his name is Will, and he's at 1459 Studios in Minneapolis, and he does a great job. And you know, his prices are good. So if you're in the Twin Cities and you want to record music, check that dude out.
Yep. We liked him so much that I even had my other band start recording with him.
All right.
Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah, he's a very easy engineer to work with. He's very blunt, but also like funny at the same time. I don't know, like when I've recorded with him and like I show up to do my vocals and stuff, like he's I don't know, like he's able to be like, you know, I think this part can be a little bit better, and like he's got a good ear for catching like what part's good and what part, like some parts that I felt maybe weren't that great. He's just kind of like, no, we'll keep that part. So yeah, he's got a really good ear. I look forward to recording with him again at some point.
Same.
Sounds like a really great person. And
Yeah.
I mean, I also think that it's very important as well that like that you're a cool person, but also that you're very honest at the same time, which it seems like he is.
Yeah, Will's super cool. I mean, I have like a different approach than some people when it comes to like recording, like going to the studio to record, usually like with like most bands I've been in, it's not really like a fun thing to me, and it's not something I particularly look forward to. I actually kind of find recording kind of boring.
All right.
But I mean, it's not awful, and it's not like, "Ugh, I hate doing this. Why?"
I see.
But you know, it just there's a lot more sitting around than people who aren't familiar with music think there is. Um, but yeah, it's a cool experience. Uh, Again, usually I show up after everybody's recorded their stuff and just kind of drop my stuff at the end.
That's the
Yeah.
cherry on top too, because once he's come in and done his vocals, we've already heard how the music sounds, and then once he lays down the pipes, it sounds. That's my favorite part. I just sit back and I'm
Right.
like, yeah, it sounds great. you know, yeah, Will's really cool, and I mean, I can't say anything else about the guy. He's just a great dude. He's an awesome guy.
Yeah, because I can imagine that also that it's kind of like, recording music and, releasing a single or like an EP or album, like requires a lot of work. And like you're saying as well, like it also means a lot of sitting around and things like that. But, like that kind of feeling of like hearing that finished product.
Oh yeah. Talking about sitting around, Will's, like I said, he's been the only dude who I've, experienced any sort of recording sessions with. And this last time with the old guard, it's funny because I thought, the first day that we went in, usually I should have known better too, because the previous times we went to record, I would record right after the drums. And, I just get the rhythm guitar out of the way.
Right.
Like on the first day. But for some reason, I didn't think that was going to be the same thing this time around for the last song. So we went in there and our drummer, he puts down his tracks and I had been drinking, I was just, throwing them back and I was enjoying it. I was like, all right, man, this is fun. And then Will's like, all right, man, you ready? I was all like, huh? I was just a little bit too tipsy, and I feel like there were a few times I messed up more this time than I did the previous sessions. It still came out great, and we fine tuned everything and we figured it out. But yeah, this last recording session, it was a lesson. Well, that's another lesson. All right, don't
Right.
go to the studio and drink too much.
Or actually, I always say, like, practice how you're gonna play and record how you're gonna play. So like,
Yeah.
like I'll always have like a shot and 2 beers. That's kind of what I do at practice. That's kind of what I do at shows, and that's kind of what I'll do at like a recording session, just to, one of those lessons learned when you're younger is like, yeah, you practice, and, you're all super tight and everything. And then right before a show, you're like, oh, I'm going to, get those nerves working a bit. And you get fucked up and then you have a really sloppy show. That's I mean, that's stuff you learn when you're, a teenager playing your first shows. And now, like, yeah, that's like my little piece of advice. I'm like, practice how you're going to play the show.
Yeah, I learned that lesson during practice, luckily. So, we were practicing one day, and we usually drink beer during our practice sessions. But this one time, I drank a little more than usual. When we were playing, like, I forgot some of the riffs, how I would play them. And I'd like be like, what's going on? And, that was probably the worst practice we ever had. But, it's not like I learned something, So, and that George actually told me that same day, he was like, hey, you see, so you gotta practice how you gotta, practice how you're going to play or whatever. And so now I think I kind of learned that, like, I can do about 4 beers before, like, it's playtime, kill the nerves, because before you get on stage, well, for me at least, I've gotten better. We've only played 4 shows, but I really like being up there. So I don't get as nervous as I think other people do. But I do like to have my alcohol before we play. You know, I'll have about 3 to 4 drinks, and I'm good. And then once we're done with our set, keep tearing them or throwing them back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's kind of like, you know, I can imagine like a little bit of alcohol might be fine, but you know, like you don't want to like go too much.
Yeah, too much can be a problem.
Yeah.
Unless that's your band's thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, which I've been in a band once where like the whole like practice how you play mentality, and we would finish like we would have an entire bottle of whiskey and maybe like 4 blunts were smoked during our practice, on top of like each of us would have 1 or 2 quarts of beer. And yeah, because that's how we played our shows, and it was like a very like tech hardcore grind band. So everybody was like, yeah, we'd be very fucked up and somehow able to like pull these shows off, but I don't think we do that anymore. Not an entire bottle of whiskey for practice.
Yeah.
And we practiced twice a week.
All right.
I've learned that I can't smoke weed before a show. I can't do that. No, I get too much in my head and I start messing up. Isaac, I've seen him smoke a bowl or 2 before a show, and he still gets up there and does his thing. I don't know how he does it. But
Yeah, I think at this point I'm just used to it.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at first that's how I got too. If I smoked too much before a set, I would get a little too in my head. Then I worry too much about, you know, screwing up, and then I would screw up. But luckily, they're not huge screw ups, so nobody knows this. But yeah, I mean, now I can smoke a bowl or 2 before the set and be just fine.
But yeah, I mean, you hear all these like you know, stories about like bands that have maybe been drinking a little bit too much during like before shows.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I remember this like kind of story about the band The Hypocrisy, where they were like talking about how someone from the crew had to like hold the guitarist because he couldn't stand up straight.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you know.
I've been close to it in the past. Many years ago.
Right.
And it's
holding you up. Almost.
More like, you know what? I'm just gonna like lay against this wall.
Was that the same band?
No, that was a different band.
Right.
No. Actually, I don't think we ever like had a show where we were too fucked up to play with that other band.
All right.
Yeah, it was like I was at a peak performance alcoholism at that point. So,
all right.
So yeah, we were pretty on it. No, this was like a punk band that I played guitar in. So
okay.
Yeah, so as long as I was able to keep my hand in the power chord position, it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like my kind of mentality when it comes to the kind of like alcohol consumption with like musicians, because you know a lot of people kind of have this idea that like, you know, the crowd is coming their first show, and like, you know, as long as the musicians can like perform properly, like I'm totally cool with it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with like I've seen some bands where I can kind of tell that they're a little tipsy and it still sounds fine.
Yeah.
I'm cool with it as long as like, yeah, as long as like the show is still going on and the show isn't a train wreck and sad.
Yeah, exactly.
if they're having fun and it sounds good, then cool, man, have at it. And if they don't drink and it still sounds cool and you have at, like, whatever's cool, man.
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
You know, but yeah, I do think though, like you should one should try to like have a consistent show.
Yeah.
You know, regardless of like your personal state of mind or whether or not like there's a big or small crowd, like I personally try to put on the same show regardless of crowd size. Because like if I don't, then why am I even doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to a show a couple years ago. I don't know if you're familiar with the band Angeles Apatrida from Spain. They're a Spanish
Right.
band.
Yep.
Yeah, and they played up here, and I actually won tickets. And I thought, you know, hell yeah, you know, I won these tickets out of everybody that's going to be there. They're a pretty well-known thrash band, right? So I thought it was going to be packed. No, man, when I got there, it
Really?
was pretty dead. Yeah, there was like maybe 5 people there, including me and a friend who I went with. And but you know what? Those bands played just as hard as like a band that I seen with
Hell
the
yeah.
you know, and they didn't care, you know, they came out and they thrashed it out and it was great. And you know, so that's the mentality that I've gone to every show that we've played with. You know, it doesn't matter how many people show up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give them the best show that I can. Like, and at that one show, the dudes were even putting on the moves, like the bass guitars. He looked like he did like this salt, like he was dropping salt and stuff, and then like then he came in and they did like the main riff, and I mean, you know, he still put on all the moves. You know, everybody did. Yeah, so this show, you know, I thought I was the big winner out of all these other people, but you know, it was just few people there, and unfortunately, I couldn't stay later for that show. I wanted to be able because the band they were like, we're just gonna hang out, you know, after this show and just drink some beer, and you guys want to hang, we can, but I couldn't. I had to be at work the next day, unfortunately.
Oh.
That would have been a good one. That would have been a good one to hang with. I got to yeah, you know, as a fan, I like seeing small shows like that with, you know, bands that I listen to, you know, because I'll admit, you know, I'm kind of a bigger fan of more like, I mean, I still listen to very underground thrash, but the bands that I really like are the biggest bands in thrash at the moment. You know what I mean? So, but I like when I get to see those bands in a very small setting. Like I got to see Havoc like that when I was it was a few years ago. Sorry about my dogs.
No problem.
Yeah, I got to see Havoc like that, and we were hanging out, and got to drink. I got to buy the. Sorry, I'll continue here in a second. They love their mommy. Is she here? Yep, they're here. Yeah. Yeah, so I got to buy a beer for the singer for Havoc, and yeah, it was I took a picture with him. Unfortunately though, that happened at I saw them with so I seen them twice. Once in a very small setting and then another time with Megadeth. And that was a big setting.
Right.
And the singer, you know, we took a picture and everything, but it ended up that they like quit that tour. I don't know if you read about it, but Havoc had like a big falling out with Dave Mustaine's son. Yeah, over like some I don't know, like something in the contract that they didn't like, and you know, and of course Dave Mustaine's going to back his son, so you know they kind of that tour they didn't complete that tour, needless to say, but it was a good show. But yeah, as I was saying, I love seeing bands with you know smaller crowd because it feels more personable and You know, you could tell that the bands appreciate it. I mean, they might be bummed because there's not a lot of people there, but the people who are there really appreciate the performance. And
Yeah.
yeah, I like it. You know, it sucks for the bands, but as a fan, it's awesome. Yeah.
I mean, it is really like you're saying. It is really cool that kind of like, you know, attending like these kind of like underground shows, and like, you know, with the after the show, like the band is basically coming down to like around the crowd and like hanging out. You know, it is a very, very cool feeling.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. You know, we were talking earlier about, you know, making sure that you're not overly inebriated before a show.
Yeah.
I went to go see Lamb of God when I was like a senior in high school. At the time, they were my favorite band, and my favorite album from them is Ashes of the Wake.
Yeah.
And so they, anyways, they were the headlining band on that tour. That's the first time I saw Municipal Waste was on that tour.
Oh.
Yeah, and they were actually touring for the Art of Partying album.
All right.
Yeah, it was a fantastic show. Well, from them at least. But
Oh.
yeah, they came out, and I was so disappointed because every single band that played before them killed it. You know, it
Yeah.
was on that bill. It was Municipal Waste, then it was God Forbid, then it was Children of Bodom, and
Oh.
then yeah, As I Lay Dying, and then Lamb of God. And you know, everybody just knocked it out of the park. But when Lamb of
Yeah.
God came, oh man, the drummer was offbeat. Their vocalist, he couldn't sing. His voice was really raspy. He said that he was sick, so you know his voice was going away, which I could have dealt with. But the thing that kind of, you know, messed it up for me was the fact that the drummer was also offbeat, and it just didn't sound good. And you know, unfortunately, the whole crowd was disappointed. And at the, you know, they played their last song, and everybody started leaving, and then they came back out to play an encore, and
Oh.
nobody was staying around. So like the guitarist, he was just like, why y'all leaving? Like, we're gonna play. You don't want us to play an encore, you know? Like, he looked upset about it, but dude, like, they didn't sound good, man. And but then years later, I saw them with Slayer on Slayer's farewell. Farewell. They redeemed themselves that show.
All right.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a good thing at least.
yeah. I got to finally see Lamb of God do really well. Excuse me 1 second.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, sorry about that.
No problem. But yeah, I mean that seems to be a pretty common thing, you know, like with bands that normally perform very well, but they have these shows where it just doesn't really work.
Yeah, and I could tell, you know, like I said, the singer for Lamb of God said he was sick, but there was reports coming out that they were actually really drunk, and I believe it because the drummer was super offbeat. It was Chris Adler on drums,
Yeah.
and yeah, it was just, you know, you could tell. So that's something that I will never do, and I'm glad that I learned my lesson at practice
Yeah.
before doing it at a show. Because doing it at a show, like, dude, man, I keep things in my head. Like, once something bothers me, like, I'll remember it forever and still think about it. So I'm glad that, you know, we haven't had a show where I feel like I've done so poorly, you know, that,
Yeah.
you know, it's made a stain on my name. But yeah,
Yeah. But it's also kind of coming back to that we spoke about that kind of like cool thing about the bands kind of hanging around and like with the crowd and stuff like that. That was also one of the things that I thought was really awesome when I saw a band like Hellripper, for example. That like James McBain himself is like selling his merch, and that was something I thought was really, really cool.
Oh yeah, for sure, dude. And I think, that's one thing. Another thing that I tell people, they're like, why do you listen to that music? And I'm like, well, not only because like I feel like it helps me release my own personal
Yeah,
demons, you know what I mean? But these bands, like, they care about their fans in a way that Beyonce is not going to be able to care about her
yeah,
fans. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because
absolutely.
yeah, like even though like no matter how mainstream a metal band can be, they're always never going to be as mainstream as you know uh, Taylor Swift or Beyonce or big names like that.
Yeah,
So they tend to really appreciate their fans and they treat them good for the most part. And so I've always had fantastic experiences at shows with the bands that I enjoy when it's a small crowd, and
yeah.
I love metal.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I totally agree with that as well. Like it is a certain bond between like uh, metal musicians and the crowd that you can't really find in places like pop music or like any other genre like that.
No, yeah. I mean, look at the mosh pit itself. You
Yeah,
know, you know, for a human being to mosh to an artist's music, that's like a loyal feeling from the soul. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And in a weird way, like I don't know how to describe it, but that I just feel like it's a different kind of loyalty, a different kind of
yeah,
appreciation and love. Like in metal, if you're a fan of one band, unless they like do something really stupid, you're gonna be a fan of that band
yeah,
for the rest of your life. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, that's metal's super cool in that way.
Yeah. And I mean, it's also like not the least for thrash metal in specifically, but like kind of like idea of like mosh pits and like wall of deaths and all this kind of like physical part of it. Like it's kind of a way almost for like the crowd to become a part of the show. You know?
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Like the band, like it's almost a disappointment if they don't get people moshing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So, like it's really cool. Like the band gets something back from the
yeah,
people in that aspect that versus like you go to a really mainstream artist's show and they're just gonna have people singing along, which is cool. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just not the same. Oh, oh,
yeah.
oh, sorry, my screen cut off. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Let's see here. So I can hear you, but now I can't. Here we go. I'm back.
Ah, great.
Yeah. Um, yeah, man, it's just metal. It's different and it's really cool and I love being a part of it. I was always a fan and now that I get to play shows in front of people, I get to experience from the other side and it's like I said earlier, I love being up there, man. Like
Yeah.
and I worry more about like my stage presence whenever I play a show. Like whenever I'm up there, like I always want to be wearing my best shoes, my pants, what shirt am I gonna wear? I might take 2-3 days to decide on my outfit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I take pride and care in the way that I present myself up there, and I try to put on an act as much as I can. Like you know, on certain parts of the music, like I'll just raise my guitar in front of myself and like, play it like that. Just give,
Yeah.
give the audience a show and what you put out. And it's been really rewarding.
Yeah. So yeah, I would also like to take the time to kind of like talk about kind of like if you guys have any like upcoming plans with Bare Knuckle Brawl, if it's like it can be shows or like upcoming releases or like basically anything that you would like to share.
Yeah, so we do have some new material that we're working on. We have one song that's almost complete. Um, and we have about 3 riffs, I believe, that we're going to be working on after this one song. And for our next release, we're hoping to do a bigger release because as of now, like our biggest release has only been 2 songs. So for our next release, because I think George mentioned earlier that there's going to be more color on this next release's artwork, and for the artwork that we got, I think it's really cool, and I'm hoping that we can put out at least 5 songs on this next release, which means that it's going to take us longer for this next release, unfortunately. But if you're in the area, you'll hear us play our songs once they're done. But
Right.
um, yeah, we're gonna be working on putting out more songs this next release, and I'm pretty excited about it. And I hope it makes its way through everybody's phones and playlists and stuff. But
Yeah.
as for shows, we are planning on doing a show or two, hopefully here in October, November. Nothing's set in stone as of right now. We're just hoping. you know,
Yeah.
we did get offered a show actually that we were supposed to play next week. We were talking about that brewery that released that, or that is going to release that beer for Testament next week. We got offered a show to play at that specific brewery on
Right.
Saturday. Yeah. Oh, sorry. It's gonna cut me off again. Sorry. Decline. Yeah. We got offered to play a show there, and it was for a different beer release. But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to play that show. But we hope to be able to play a show, something like that, because I would love to play at a brewery for a beer release. Hell yeah, dude. That's um, but yeah, we're hoping to get some more shows here before the end of the year, and hopefully that will lead to uh, a release sooner than later. Because of
Yeah.
course recording costs money. So what we've done, we've been lucky enough to be able to sell enough merch and make enough money at the shows that we play to be able to fund our recording sessions. And I think the most we've paid was only like it was for our first recording session. That was like everybody had to pitch in like the full amount. But after that, since we've had merch sales and stuff, we use what we have, and then whatever's not covered, then we pitch in after that. But yeah, man, it's been working out.
All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of like you're saying, like playing a show at a brewery for like a beer release. That sounds like a very Thrash thing to do.
Oh yeah, and you know what? They actually make this specific beer for. So there's a band here in Minnesota called Rat Enhancer, and their guitarist works at that brewery.
Oh.
And he's actually the one who got Testament together with the brewery, and
All right.
yeah, he's the one who got that collaboration going. But they make this beer that we're going to be playing at that show for him,
Right.
and I would have loved to been a part of it, but we couldn't do it this time, unfortunately. But yeah, man, I mean, I'm a huge craft beer guy. Like whenever I buy beer, for the most part, I buy different beers. I never go into to the liquor store and get the same beer unless I really like it. Then I'm gonna go. There is one beer here called was it Minnesota Gold,
All
and
right.
it's a local beer that's brewed here, but it's a cheap beer, and it's a lager, and it's you pay, I think it's $12 for a 12 pack of 16-ounce cans. So that's a bigger can, and then
Yeah.
the beer's like 5% alcohol. That one I always tear that beer up because you can't, and it's a good quality tasting beer. And I know my beer. I actually used to be a brewer too, so if it wasn't good, I wouldn't be buying it.
Yeah. I believe you mentioned that at one of our lives.
Yeah. I used to work at a brewery
Yeah.
here called Urban Growler, and I loved it. It was a good job. But COVID-19 happened, and everything kind of. It was a weird time, and but brewing beer is really cool, and drinking beer is awesome. Yeah, at our last show, you know who Stone Cold Steve Austin is, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, well, so he does this thing where he has two beers in his each hand, and then he smashes them, and then he chugs the beers, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, at our last show, we took a band picture of everybody doing that, and then on our band camp, we have it up. So
Yeah. I think I saw that one.
yep, yeah. I love that picture so much. Not everybody was excited to take that picture, but it was worth it.
Yeah, I believe one of you had like a municipal waste shirt, like one of like an arch enemy, I believe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was the one with the municipal waste shirt, and
Yeah.
Arch, that was our lead guitarist.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he's actually a doctor, by the way.
All right.
Yeah, he's a urologist.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, do you have anything else that you would like to talk about, or do you think it's about time to wrap it up?
Well, I'm good. Unless you have questions you want to ask me, I can definitely answer your question.
I'm think I'm finished for now.
Nice. No, I think we're good then.
Yeah. I mean, and if there's anything else that you think of after words, we can obviously make another episode and we can talk more if you would be open to that.
For sure. On behalf of the other guys that were here, they said thanks for having them on, and they really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, it's a great pleasure.
Yeah, same here. It was fun talking with you, and I appreciate it. And if you're listening to this, and if you haven't heard of us, check us out. We're a crossover thrash band from St. Paul, Minnesota, and we do it as good as we can. Yeah, definitely check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Bandcamp. You can hear all our music on every major streaming platform: Spotify, iTunes, YouTube Music, whatever. Check us out.
Yeah, and obviously we at Metal Verbalizers are big fans of Bare Knuckle Brawl, and we definitely encourage you to guys to check them out.
Thank you, appreciate that.
But yeah, again, thank you so much for taking the time to make this episode.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was really fun.
Yeah, great pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Have a good one.